All right, good afternoon. Welcome to class, what was it, 4 of FOP. Uh, we're going to finish off uh, the API lesson today, and we're going to start CRUD applications. Um, Yesterday, upon the end of class, you know, I received some concern from you guys about, not really understanding much about the API and whatnot. So we'll probably take some time to kind of mess around with different APIs and walk through building the JavaScript once we're done before we conclude the lesson. Um, but today I think we have like two more left on the lesson. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Oh, all right. So yesterday we kind of finished off talking about the newish syntax for the API calls, right? We learned about the old way of going about things, and this being the more updated version. And then we finished off before we even got to attempt the Pokemon.html. So let's go ahead and bring that up. Nope, wrong one. Pokemon.html, and then open with live server. All right, so the Poke API, another very simple one that is very popular for beginners when working with the API, is very straightforward, right? It's only going to take a URL as well. I think we visited yesterday the Poke API. You guys will actually use this as well in the immersive program a lot more than we're going to do today. It's going to be a little bit more thorough, but we're using it kind of to uh, get some more experience with the API. So for the JavaScript and the HTML, we have something very simple. We have our H1 header, an input tag with a button, and then we have two other header tags here. One holding a name and one holding the type of the Pokemon with a nice little image to kind of give us a representation of what we're grabbing. Right now, if we look at the code, you already have a folder template of the newest version of your API call using the async function. Like before, we have a query selector that adds an event listener for the click, and upon clicking it, it runs the function get fetch. Very similar to how we had it before. It goes in here, it grabs the value that's being added inside the input tag and saves it to a variable called choice. And then it concatenates that to the URL string, saving it to another variable called URL, which they then use to add it to the fetch method with await, allowing your browser to send the request, ping the API, collect the database, or go into the database, collect the information, and then send it back to you. From there, we convert it into a JSON format after we parse through the data, saving it to the Pokemon info. So based off this code, if I were to add Ditto right now, or actually, let's do something more interesting. Let's go with Lugia. Let's start with the legendaries. What would happen when I press this button? Is this going to change? The code's right here, right? What's going to happen when I press the uh, they get Pokemon. Well, it's going to console.login, right? So right now there's nothing linking this image. This image was added here on the HTML. It's an image tag on line 23. And the only thing our code is really doing right now is just console.login the information that we get back from the Poke API. So we press get Pokemon, and then we go into inspect and check out the console. We see here that we got an object. The API call was successful. And when you open it up, we get abilities, cries, forms, held items, moves, the name of Lugia, um, and the image for Lugia is under the sprites key value pair. Sprites is just another word for like an image. It's typically used more along like game development. But within the sprites key value pair, we see a value of a dictionary with the back default. Let's go ahead and open this up. We have the back default, back shiny, front default, and then front shiny, right? So you're able to choose from different versions, and it would be up to you guys to parse through the data from the Poke API to grab what you are looking for. Now, your assignment to start off today is going to work on the Poke API. I'm not going to break you up into teams. We're going to keep it here since it's a much smaller class than usual. And you're going to write code for the application so that on the button click, the H2 element name changes to the Pokemon search. The default image is replaced with a picture of the same Pokemon, and the type of Pokemon is listed in the H3 type element. If you have time, add a checkbox next to the get a Pokemon button that says shiny. If the shiny box is checked, it should return the shiny picture of that Pokemon. So I would actually like for you guys to be able to work on the shiny version. So I'm going to give you guys 20 minutes to get all this squared away. If at any point you guys run into any issues, please speak up and we can walk through it together. Sound good? Awesome. Let's get to it. There you go.
Okay. Should be sharing, and that's in the way. So, I actually don't know any other Pokemon other than Pikachu. So I was actually just Googling names, but that's the one I used to look this up. So just kind of the way it works. If I type in Pikachu, I don't know what's another Pokemon. I guess I could type in here first.
Do Squirtle.
Arcanine.
Arcanine too. Actually, I would like for you to do Lugia because he has two types. I want to see more than one type on your screen. But do Lugia,
So
Lugia.
GIA. Okay, so for type, I grabbed species because I didn't know what it was referring to with type there. I got the shiny to work. So what this is grabbing is it essentially runs the same code with a difference in the image source down here. So when I click get Pokemon here, it's getting the back shiny image versus if I click on the shiny button over here, it is grabbing the front shiny. So I don't know if I did that right, but essentially I have two event listeners on the get Pokemon button. I am running the get fetch function, and then the shiny one is running the get shiny function. One of the things that I noticed almost immediately was handling the user input. So if this was a capital L, initially this would not have worked because the URL expects a lowercase. So in the function, I took that value of the input, made it lowercase to work with the URL. And then, yeah, just edited or grabbed down here the image source, change that, and then also the name here, as well as the, what do we call this, the type at the bottom. But then again, I didn't know what data I was supposed to be grabbing for this one, so I'm pretty much duplicating this, I guess.
Yeah, so
But no, that's
continue.
no, I was just saying no, that's pretty much what I did. I just instruction wise wasn't too sure what I was supposed to grab.
Yeah, so types was one of the key value pairs in the JSON. Uh, so make sure that you guys actually parse through the data and find it. It should be second to last right there. Uh, that's a skill in itself. You know, going through the data and finding the information that's being given to you guys. But yeah, so types is there. The reason I asked that one because it comes in an array, and some Pokemons have more than just one type. Um, but you got the shiny thing down, which is cool. I believe maybe I gotta fix the wording for it. But for the shiny part, oh, uh, it should have been a checkbox. So it should be
Yeah,
whether this checkbox is clicked or not.
that was
Maybe
another
what's up?
through because down here I have type equals checkbox. I thought that would have made it a checkbox, and I was in the process of trying to figure out what was wrong there.
It should have. Oh, it's not a button. It's supposed to be an input tag.
Let's
So
try that.
yeah, I guess the wording was confusing. It says, if you have time, add a checkbox next to the get Pokemon button. Oh no, it is box. A checkbox. So yeah, so it should be a checkbox. Yeah,
Oh, okay, that
that's fine.
might. Okay, cool.
Anybody want to
Well,
demonstrate
I'm
theirs?
gonna.
Yeah, I mean, good job, Eric. You did pretty well for the time that we got, anyways. So props on you. Anybody else want to demonstrate theirs? How far they got? What they did? Their pose? Anything that you might have like encountered, issues that you want to discuss? No, Joseph. Let's see what you got. Is that okay? No,
I
I'm,
didn't get very far at all.
and that's fine.
I'm still learning a lot. I barely got the name change.
Okay. Was that and I asked, even though you say we barely got anywhere at all, I like it because it's like a learning moment. So whenever you guys struggle or there's any part that you got friction, I enjoy seeing it so we can talk about it, you know? So by all means, let's see the code and, what was going through your head, like, what was difficult, what was confusing.
Can you guys see?
Yep.
So the confusing part for me is really just I'm still learning the syntax and using HTML. My first time using HTML and CSS was on Monday when we started this class. And then it's using JavaScript and everything to interact with HTML and CSS was also for this class. So I'm still just learning like syntax and um, like query selectors and all of this stuff. So I was struggling a little bit with getting that stuff down, trying not to like copy and paste and just write it out myself. But so yeah, this is just as far as I got. What was trying to remember one of the what do you call it, Pokemons, legendary Pokemons? Arta
Zapdos.
Zapdos. What's another one?
Let's see, Groudon.
Two.
Mewtwo, yeah, that's a good one. Sweet. I love Mewtwo. Classic.
But yeah, I mean, it's just a learning curve. I'm still just learning.
Yeah.
As far as like syntax and all that stuff goes.
Of course, of course. So whenever you guys are working with HTML and JavaScript, think of it this way. when you're working in your JavaScript document, don't even think about HTML. Realistically, everything up to the point that you want to manipulate your HTML document is all JavaScript, right? If you look at your document, what two lines here are the only lines that are involving HTML?
Say
Line
that again?
one. The only two lines you have in your JavaScript file that involve HTML are line 1 and line 10, right? But whenever you guys are coding and whatnot, you're working with your JavaScript, with HTML, just code like normally, like you would code with JavaScript, right? How you guys normally code your assignments or these coding challenges and whatnot. It's just simple JavaScript code, right? The only time it changes is the moment that you're trying to manipulate the HTML document, and it's very brief, right? It's only when you're trying to manipulate like a tag, right? Or which later you guys will do, creating the tag through your JavaScript file. But the only HTML involved in here is literally just line 1 and line 10. Everything else is just pure JavaScript, right? You're just creating a function. You're making a command, you're making it go like do something. But besides that, like it's just pure JavaScript. I think maybe in your head you're just like you hear JavaScript and HTML and you just can't put them together because they're two different things, and it just like makes you panic. All right, but realistically, the only time you're ever even using HTML in JavaScript is when you're trying to grab a tag and you manipulate it, just like you're doing in line 1 and in line 10, right? So don't overthink it. Let me show you guys what I did. I kind of coded on a little bit too, just so I can be able to show you guys as well, like what I did, and you guys get an idea. I also didn't finish, which is why I asked you guys if you guys one more time, because I didn't realize how difficult an assignment might be for for new beginners, which you're kind of lucky because the previous instructor, Guillermo, he would get to students like 5 minutes. So it was quick, man. It was like 5 minutes, all right, and then afterwards, let's see it. But yeah, so let me go ahead and share the screen. And not to say there's anything wrong with that, but some people are at different paces, and that's okay. You guys seem to be struggling a little bit with JavaScript, so you guys need a little bit more time and attention on this. But yeah, so straight off the bat, everything's pretty straightforward, just like you guys had the boilerplate that was given to you guys. Where the code starts to deviate is on line 9, right? So after I got the info, right, the Pokemon info, right, what came after line 8 was the console.log, right, where it showed the entire data. But then the next couple lines I changed were essentially where I started parsing through the JSON object and I started grabbing stuff. So I went ahead and grabbed the Pokemon name. I grabbed the first, and granted, there's all the more edge cases that you can do, right? But it was just very simple right now because I was typing in lowercase and I wanted to grab make sure it was capitalized. So I got the first one, made it to uppercase, and then I conjoined it with what it should be, but everything after the first letter, right? And that gives me Lugia, all right? After that, I got the Pokemon image. I just stuck to the very first one, the front default. Assigned it to the Pokemon image variable. And then the Pokemon types, if you guys did try go through it, was a little bit difficult, especially trying to read the JSON object. It might have been confusing for some people. Let's actually print out what it looked like. Console.log, use this. Pokemon info.types, right? It looks like this, right? And then you also see this prototype also in your array. So you might think there's probably 3 in here, but you got to go inside of it. And then once you open it up, there's certain things you got to get. So it could have been confusing if you guys are new to JSON, who was confused by looking at the JSON? Nobody? Oh, Cody, that's fine. I was confused at first. It's probably what took me the longest time. I was like trying to understand like where the prototype object thing was coming from, and my array was only two. All right, just looking from here and going to types, I see these two going here. I was like trying to figure out how the heck am I supposed to grab this? Uh, I ended up just taking it step by step, right? And that's probably the best way of going about it. Is by console.logging everything that you do to kind of break it in there, right? So I did console.log.info and then .types. So I started visualizing the data and then breaking it down. All right, okay. So I got an array. Well, let's go through each one. So I started going through the indexes. Give me a second. Let me close the door. My kid's down. Right. So I got the indexes, and then as I grab the indexes, I'm seeing that now I'm getting objects. I'm like, okay, so now I'm getting objects. Now every single one I can grab it. I opened it up. I see there's two key value pairs, the slot and the type. I don't really care for the slot. I want the type. So then I just did dot type to keep visualizing it a little bit more and kind of start going deeper. And then it gave me the actual value of that, which is another object. What do I want from here? Well, just a name. And that's how I ended up with line 14. Right. So I essentially looped through there, and every time I got the data I wanted, which was the name of the type, I just went ahead and pushed it into my empty Pokemon types array on line 11. And then from there, I had the name, the image, and all the types in a list, right? So last but not least, I added the name on there. I added the image, and then for the types, well, some have one type, some have two. I think some these days have three now. I'm not quite sure. I haven't played Pokemon in a while. But I knew more than likely from the way the data was coming out. I even tested out. Like I went to Pikachu, and Pikachu was giving me even if it was I don't have it anymore. Even if it was only one type, it was still giving me an array. So I was like, well, I'm still gonna have to loop through it anyways, right? So I just stuck to that for loop. And then when it came to actually adding it into the type down here, I was gonna loop through the Pokemon types array that I created with just the names. I got what was currently there in the inner text of the H3 header that I was holding the types, right? And if after I got it, I just concatenated every single type that came afterwards onto it to compensate for the multiple types that some of these Pokemon will have. The only thing I did not get to do before time ended was being able to reset it. Right. I was not able to get to the shiny Pokemon, but that's what my code looked like for the time I had. What do you guys think? Were you guys kind of on the same boat?
Oh, I was just taking the first index for the types. I never even got the multiple types one. I just took the first one. I
Yeah,
didn't know they
it's okay.
concatenated them.
Yeah,
I got, yeah,
you want to show us, Mikkel?
yeah, sure. Um, yeah, it's really good to see how different people like approach the problem solving. So that's really interesting. Yeah, and I was having a hard time spelling the Pokemon name. They're so weird to spell. Um, you guys seen it?
Yep.
that Pokemon that you? That one?
Lugia,
Yeah, how do you spell that?
Lugia.
So you get, so I also printed out the object. And so with the type, I just get it at index 0 and then the first one, the second there. So look at the code. I had the, so I console logged type. So I said types at index 0, which is gonna be this object right here. And then I say the type key, and then the name, and then I got psychic right there. And then I just put it in that location. So I created variables for each thing. So name text is like the H2. I
Yep.
made the H2 name text. So I was gonna put the name. Oh yeah, so for the shiny, so I got the shiny to work. So you checkbox and then you click it, it changes. So what I did for that one is in the HTML, I created that input checkbox and also added the label to it. When you add the label like afterwards, you see it come that shiny, that's the label. And then for the checkbox, I have just the class. No. Class. Yeah. So once the checkbox is checked, so after I do the fetch, I say if the checkbox is checked, I'm gonna log and say it's checked right now. And then I'm going to go to the Pokemon info, and then I go to sprites. So you have to search through it in order to find where the sprites are. So the sprites entry is right there, and then I say front shiny. So you see it has back default, back shiny, front defaults.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go further, you see front shiny. Then I just captured that. And then I put it as the image source. So
Sweet.
that's what I did for that.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for the demonstration, Mikhail.
Hey, Mikkel, real quick question. How'd you get that if shiny dot checked? What'd you do in your JavaScript?
So there's a in the checkbox, it says if it's checked or not.
Okay, so how'd you get it just so you could just put in shiny right there, shiny dot checked?
Oh, it's printed. It's printed. It's the console log.
Oh no, sorry, one line above it. So shiny dot checked is true, right? So how'd you get it just to do
Yeah.
shiny?
So it's
Did you make that constant you said? Oh, there.
yeah,
Oh,
right
okay,
here.
copy, thanks.
Yeah, right here.
Cool.
So I get it. Yeah, I got it by ID. So the checkbox has an ID of shiny. So that's why it's useful if you just create variables for the thing, so you can do stuff like this. So shiny dot check.
Nice. Yeah, thanks.
So is dot check just a method?
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is gonna return true or
Okay.
false if the checkbox is checked or not.
Yes.
So if I uncheck, yeah.
What he did, guys, was instead of like hard coding constantly, like document dot query selector, he selected that the checkbox and he assigned it to a variable named shiny, right? And after it was assigned to the variable, you can use the like dot source, dot inner text, whatever you want to do, because it's a method, right? It wasn't assigned to a variable before, so typically we have to type out document dot query selector. But he did that already and then assigned it to the shiny variable. And you can still call the method on that, right? It doesn't change. It's just assigned to something else. Therefore, you don't have to keep typing it, right? But hey, it is a little overtime. It's 6:25. So let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break, guys. Appreciate the hard work, and we'll continue with the lesson upon our return. All right, guys, let's go ahead and continue with the lecture. All right, so that concludes the Pokemon API. So I've already discussed it before, but every API will have unique documentation, right? Reading the API documentation is very important for you to be able to successfully ping the API and receive the information you are looking for, right? They always have some form of documentation with a brief description, code snippet of how to properly talk to the API, and then the requirements needed to make the request, right? As you see here, some documents are good and some are absolutely terrible. All right, some are more complex than others, some are more user-friendly, some require a little bit more knowledge with API and verification to credentials than others. Or some are just very straightforward, like the Poke API and the dog and cocktail, they just take a link and you're able to to ping them. A skill you will need to acquire. There's no other way to acquire a skill than to attempt it and mess it up. All right, so as mentioned, they're all different. So as you guys go through your time in the immersive program and in your software engineering careers, you'll find all types. But only way to learn is by doing it, right? All right, next, local storage, right? So an API is an application programming interface. That's a weird random. Anyway, so local storage. I don't know if you guys have ever dabbled around with your browser, right? So we've already checked the developer tools. We know that we can check the DOM, right? The console, see what stuff that prints out. I mentioned there's other things that you can also do on here, and one of them is if you go to application, you have your storage, right? This is actually also where your browser has. This is my internet connection is unstable. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So your browser also stores stuff like cookies here, right? To remember your last login, who you are, your search history, and it just collects a bunch of data, right? Another thing that your browser has is local storage. And we're gonna assist you and teach you how to manipulate your local storage. This comes very in handy when whenever you start working on your full stack application and you start adding the user authentication, like your login screen, your sign up, and whatnot. Local storage helps out a lot because you're able to kind of manipulate the login and the log out kind of like steps using local storage. So typically, the way it works is that you when you log in, you're presented with the request for your username or an email and a password, right? And the application will take your information, and then they will use this information and put in a post request, is what it's called, to the backend, right? The whatever API you're trying to ping, the database, they will use your credentials and they will authenticate you through their backend, and then they will either grant you access or deny you, right? And if you get access, there's different forms of verification that we use. A very common one is token authentication, where when you get approved to have access to the application, the backend will create a temporary token for you to use, right? This token is pretty much just like it's like a ticket that allows you to access the website temporarily. Typically, they last about an hour. They'll give you this token, and then you use that token to ensure that your user is authenticated throughout the entire process that they use your application, right? And whenever you guys start working with your full stack application and you're in the development process, we like to use local storage so we can save that token. And we can check if that user is currently authenticated or not, right? We put in the local storage, and then as we build our application and they go to different parts of our web page, let's say their profile, we would check the local storage. Does this person ever receive a token to be here? If there is a token in the local storage, then we will move them towards their profile. If there is no token in there, then they will not have access to that part of the web application, right? And then whenever they go to sign out, we go to local storage and delete the token from the local storage, therefore, logging them out, and then we'll move them to the logout screen. So local storage allows you to kind of store information. And it's very helpful during the building process of your application. And we're going to show you how to mess with that on this next lesson. So for local storage, what is local storage? A special kind of API that allows you to store data across the browser session. Very similar to how like the cookies work. Throughout your time in the application, it stores information for you. Why is it important, and what happens to our apps right now when we refresh the page? Well, the browser collects this information, as mentioned before, to provide the best experience possible during the application itself. Right? There's a lot of information that the application needs that it's just easy to store in the browser to maintain access throughout the entire process. All right. This kind of how the syntax looks like. Essentially, it's a command. So very similar to whenever you want to manipulate the DOM, what do? We use document and then dot whatever kind of command we want to use. So here we're not manipulating the document, we're manipulating the local storage. So it would start with local storage and the starting method that it comes with. One of them is set item. And this is how you store something in the local storage. It's a set item method that takes two arguments. A string, which will be whatever you want to call the item you're storing in there. And then the second parameter or the argument will be, hold on, excuse my internet connection is unstable. Am I good?
I missed what you were saying about the two input variables there.
Okay, yeah, sorry. If I cut off again, just let me know. Essentially, the method takes two arguments, one being the string, whatever you want to name the item you're storing in there, and then the second argument is the actual item itself. For example, if I wanted to store the token, well, the string will be token, and then the value or the second argument will be the actual token itself, which will be some kind of like a hash passcode of like numbers and letters, right? And whenever you're working in your application, you're able to access stuff from the local storage using the get item method, right? As we see here on line 2, they create a variable called get string, and then within this variable, they're assigning what comes back from the get item method. So they do local storage dot get item, and then the argument it takes is the name that you gave that item when you stored it, and it will return to you the value of it, and it assigns it to that variable, right? And after that, they just console.log to demonstrate, right? The next slide should show you the commands you will use. So you have set item and get item, as discussed prior. Set item stores that item into your local storage. Get item allows you to kind of grab it. It still keeps it in there, doesn't delete it, but it just like lets you access it. We then have local storage dot remove item that will allow you to delete that individual item completely. The argument that it takes is the name, the string value that you gave. And then you have local storage dot clear, which just clears your entire local storage. right? These are the most basic commands you can use with local storage. I honestly don't know if there's other ones. These are all ones I've used. Because typically you don't want to just have local, the tokens in the local storage. It's mainly for development. Once you actually deploy your website, that's not the type of authentication you want to use. And it's not smart to have what's giving you access to to this web page on your browser. That's exactly how you get your stuff hacked. Um, so it's only useful really for development, and that's what we're going to be doing, right? On the bottom of the code snippet, we see here a small little description of what it looks like, right? The local storage has the key and value. The key is where the stream will go, and the value is the actual item that you're trying to store in here. API student practice bot score.html. I'm gonna make a note on this. There's no explanation to it. And I'm sorry for that. I got to adjust the curriculum. This one's another one that kind of just jumps you in there and you don't know how to do it yet. But we'll check it out and we'll discuss it. Pokemon, bot score. All right. So the assignment itself, you got to create a button that adds 1 and a button that subtracts 1 to a bot score stored in local storage. Never mind, this is not the assignment. My bad. I was getting ahead of myself. This was easy. So very simple, right? All you have to do is add a button that will manipulate something that you have stored in your local storage. Now to get here, you have to go under application and you go here to local storage. There's nothing in here, so it's empty. But once you start, my bad, right here. You want to click the actual listed part of it. It should bring you here. We see count and 1 due to the JavaScript of the assignment. If we go to the assignment, we check out the JavaScript, we're setting an item inside local storage. We set count with value of 1. We grab it and then we're console.logging it. So they gave you a small little boilerplate. Now you have to be able to increase this number and decrease it. Also, make sure if it's 0, you can't decrease it. Just as a little extra. It's not that hard, but don't let it go into negative. So the count will be 0 or greater. Sound good? All right. We'll take 10 minutes. All right, peace. How'd it go? Good? Easy? You wanna know? You guys there? Hello?
You know, yeah.
Sorry, my Zoom, I don't know what's going on, but it's acting up. Okay, how was it? Good? What's wrong, Eric?
So yeah, I didn't get to really focus on it just because something weird happened to my VS Code and my syntax highlighting like completely went away. So I was troubleshooting that the whole time. But
That's fine. Joseph?
Uh, okay, I guess. I mean, I got the buttons made and stuff, and then but struggling with getting the functions to actually add or subtract to the local storage.
Show us, let's see.
So I wasn't really sure what to do or like how to go about. So I just made the buttons really quick. Added the query selector, event listeners for clicking on the buttons and everything, and then made the functions for adding and subtracting. But I wasn't sure how to go about grabbing the local storage and then to add or subtract to it.
Okay. All right, first and foremost, line 5, you want line 5 within the add and the minus function, right? It's gonna grab it, it's gonna add it to get string, but then what are you doing with get string? You're never doing anything. You're console.logging it at line 16, but it never changed, and you're only console.logging it once, right? So every time that you want to grab something, like if you want to grab the most up-to-date information of what's in the local storage, then you have to do get item again. Like that's how it goes, right? Because if you say where you ever, I think it was like line 5, you did get item, and then you saved whatever was in the local storage in a variable. But then what? Once you update that local storage, that variable and the local storage don't match no more, right? It's not like it's gonna update because it's not running, right? It ran once, it saved it into the get string variable, but it doesn't update because it's not within its function. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right. So it made no sense to have it there because when the point of function is to make it do something. You want to update something. If you just have stagnant code when it first runs, it'll run once. That's it. But that's not what we want, right? We want to ensure that it runs every time you press a button. All right. So it has to be within the function. Because when you press the button, it does something, which is what functions do, right? So what should happen, right? Whenever we press the add button, we need to grab the current count of what's in local storage, add something new to that count, and then reset the count, right? Because when you grab something from the local storage using the get item, you're saving it to a variable, all right? And let's say it's 5, right? Well, now we're gonna increase that count by 1. So whatever get string plus 1 plus equals 1, and now we have to reset what local storage has because it doesn't just automatically. They're not linked, We have to reset it. So now you have to go back local storage dot set item to get string or like new or updated string, whatever you want to call it, right? So that's what needs to happen. So right there on line 8, you're doing good. You're grabbing the current count. Now you're gonna do get string plus equals 1. We're gonna increase the count once. On line 9. Yeah, so that should be get string plus equals 1. And now on the next line, we have to update the new count. So it should be local storage dot set item. And then what item do we want to set? We want to set the count item and give it the new value, which is going to be whatever get string is now after we update it, right?
So
Yes, sir.
sorry, say that again.
Yep, just like that. We're in the
So
set
now
item.
we're resetting. Go ahead.
Yeah, so remember the set item takes 2 arguments: the name of your value and then the value itself, right? So it's going to be count, comma, and then give it the new value within the parentheses.
The new value
There you
being
go.
2.
No, it won't be 2, right? Because now always going to be 2. We're only increasing it by 1. We updated the value there on line 9. Right? We grabbed what was there before, we increased it by 1, and now we have to reset it to the updated value, which is going to be get string.
Oh, I see. So, okay.
Yep. Right? Get item, it only lets you access it, but it's not like it's manipulating it in any shape, way, or form. Right? So whenever you save it into the variable called get string, you have to manually increase the count to get string by 1. And then we have to reset it, right? Because it doesn't they're not linked. It's not like linking your what you call it, your HTML to your JavaScript, right? And they're talking. It doesn't work that way. We have to manually set it ourselves, right? Cool. And then how do you think we're gonna do the minus one?
So pretty much it's the same thing then, just flip it into subtraction.
Correct. Right. Easy? Easy enough? It's okay. This is the first time you guys see local storage, so I understand if you're getting confused of how to like manipulate it. But it's kind of like I mentioned, when we wanted to manipulate the DOM, what do? We got document dot query selector. Now we want to manipulate the local storage. We did local storage dot set item, right? So we have to call upon it, and then they have specific methods that they use, and we're using those methods. We can't just do like local storage plus equals 1, right? Okay, that's I think that's good. Go ahead and stop sharing, please, so we can continue with the lecture.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joseph, for
Thank
showing
you.
us your code. For some reason, I'm lagging behind. Are you guys hearing me right? Am I stuttering? Do I sound like broken?
I can hear and see you.
Sound normal.
Okay, good. For some reason, I'm like 2 or 3 seconds like behind you guys. So I'll talk, and then like 3 seconds later, like you guys respond. So if I cut you off, I do apologize. I got potato Wi-Fi, so we'll figure it out. Okay, moving on. Share screen. All right, so that takes care of the boxscore.html. NASA picture of the day. This is gonna be. I don't think this is actually an assignment. I don't know why he put it here. I think he wanted to do something with it, but he didn't. Anyways, I think it was a bonus assignment. So it's a NASA API. Let's check it out. So the NASA API. Oh, now I know why. Okay, so as mentioned before, different APIs are have different complexity to their documentation. I believe this is one of the slightly more complex than what you see. Some of these require. Oh, you do not. Never mind. So how do you add this? I'm so confused. Stand by. Let me figure this out. I might have to completely remove this from the curriculum. Your next assignment is going to be the NASA picture of the day. You have no border template. I need you to go into the documentation of the NASA API and make the NASA picture of the day appear on your screen. Okay? So no border template, no walkthrough, nothing. Kind of you guys going through here and finding yourself. So go to NASA documentation and make it happen. Okay? Too easy? Give it a try. We'll reconvene in the next 10 minutes. All right. How's it going? Who solved it? Let's see it. Anybody? Nobody. Really?
I got it.
All right, let's see it. Yeah.
So you had to sign up on the page, and they gave you an API key.
Are you sure?
Mm. creating key. And I use Postman to see everything. Hold on.
Yep. I was hoping someone will use Postman.
Hold on, please. So it's kind of use the same whole fetch stuff from the other one. So in open up the
Nice to see the JavaScript.
yeah, okay. So I have so I created a button that when you press it, it'll get the image. So I have the image SRC right there. And then I had a section for the
Mikhail,
text explanation. Oh, yeah.
what is what kind
Oh,
of
the
JavaScript is
JavaScript.
that?
Oh,
Well,
sorry.
no, it's fine.
Yeah, sorry.
Uh,
Yeah, so
you're-
the button, the image, the text. I was trying to get video, but not that one. Yeah, sorry. So when you click the button, I go to this function, get image, and then it'll do the fetch. And this is the command it'll send. Because they said on the website, this is the command, and then you add the API key that you got. And then you can also select the specific date that you want the image from. So you append the date to it. And that's in the documentation. So you have to like read the documentation. Then I did a console log of the data. And then I did a console log of the URL where the image would be. And then I did because it's sending back that data object, then I did the key for explanation. So if we go to open up the HTML, it just goes straight to the browser now. Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, go to the browser. Oh wait, I hope you don't think I was yelling at you by accident. I was actually gonna try to give you.
Oh no, no, yeah, I'm
Okay.
from the
I just
military,
want to make
bro.
sure,
Like,
man.
yeah, I'm not I'm not a, what do you call those?
You're good.
One of
Are
them, yeah.
are you showing the browser?
Oh, I have to bring it over onto my other. So in the browser, so like I did that date thing. So if you select a date in that's the Postman. I don't want to deep chat. Let's go straight to the topic. So
Yeah, just press get image. Let's
yeah,
see.
yeah. So to get image, and there you go. And if you change the date, so this was what I wanted to fix. So this is like a YouTube link, and it doesn't show YouTube links.
Yep.
But if you go to
I
like a different image,
I encountered the same issue. Today's. Tell me if I'm wrong. Today's date doesn't have a
it
picture.
doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't show today's date
Yeah,
either.
it's only
So the
a
10th.
YouTube
So
video.
because it's a YouTube, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So I was like looking up how to see YouTube link. So if I click on this YouTube link, you'll see the black holes that it's talking about there.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
But if you just do other days, yeah.
So, did you guys get somewhere near Mikhail did, or where were you guys stuck at?
For me, I was able to. I was so proud. I actually made the HTML and the JavaScript files from blank. But I
Good.
got up. But I mean, I'm really interested in that code that you got from Postman because that was basically where I was stuck at, like trying to just get an API because I had the URL, I had able to pull URL and all that, and but that was pretty much where I think I got stuck.
I'm gonna share some stuff. Who's sharing right now?
Oh, I'll stop.
You're good, brother. No worries. All right. I want to talk about how I went about this. I don't think I went over this one last class. So like for me, seeing it, I was like, what the heck, what's going on? But yeah, I even did ChatGPT because I was having some issues. I was like, what's going on in my code? But it wasn't showing up anything. But it's pretty straightforward. And let's get down to it. So we were in the NASA API, right? So upon getting here, it's a little overwhelming at first, right? It seems like a lot. You see generate API, authentication, recover API key, and you get confused, right? You did need to generate an API key, but even if you skip this step to begin with, right? Once you go to browse APIs, I saw APOD astronomy picture of the day. I'm like, okay, it's this one, right? Opens it up. I started reading through this. This obviously told me freaking nothing, nada. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to the GitHub repository. And yeah, we opened it up. And I mentioned a lot of stuff is gonna mean jack, right? There's nothing here that is useful for the most part for you guys until you get to a certain part. So if you skim through here, you can see like getting started, standard environment. You don't need any of this. You don't need no virtual environment. Docs, APOD parser. You don't need that. Probably
You're
the
breaking
docs.
up. I really didn't hear that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, right when you were just at the main repository, with all the
Okay.
files and folders, that's when you started breaking up.
Awesome,
Thanks.
awesome. So yeah, the initial description of the API told me nothing. So clicked on documentation, it brought me here. A lot of this stuff was absolutely useless just by looking at it. That's not what I'm working with. We're just working with just some plain simple JavaScript. Table of contents. What you want to go to, what you should call your attention is either the getting started or the docs, right? And looking at the getting started table of contents, like the subcategories, it talks only by environments. You don't need none of that. So I went straight to documents. And this is where it really mattered, right? And then reading from the top, it tells you there's only two endpoints, which is going to be the version of what you're working with, and then APOD, right? And the only thing that's going to differ is honestly just the version itself, which you kind of see on the examples down here. They have like where is it at? Right here, V1, right? Stuff like that. No biggie. Anywho, going through here, I see the URL search parameters, right? Because remember, as you guys remember, when I discussed talking with APIs, I mentioned it's a URL that takes query parameters for whatever you want, right? So right off the bat, it tells me that I need API key. And then from the explanations and example that I see here, they have a section for API key equals, and they substitute it with demo key. Obviously, there's no actual key here. So that should have told you guys, hey, I'm gonna need to get myself a key. So up here, clicking here, it allows you to sign up, right? Cool, you get your key in the email. And then going through it, you can come down here and check out the different return objects. Which one do you think applies to you guys the most out of these three? Definitely not the first one. Does that look like our URL that we're searching by? Not at all. So that should have been a no-go. The two closest one are these two right here, right? But what differs? Well, the only thing that's different between these two, realistically, are the query parameters. This one is making a GET request with a count of 5. So it's getting 5 random days and returning 5 different data, right? This one is more specific. it has a start date and an end date that you're able to choose from to grab information. They're exactly the same thing, only difference is what they're requiring for. So realistically, you really only need to know this, and then once you know the baseline of what your URL should look like, you can use the URL search parameters they have, and they show it to you. You know, if you want to look by date, it's in the string format, right? They show you an example. My content tag, they show you even the count tag they have here. Like you can look through it for by count, which they did, right? They show you the example. So just by context clues, I'm able to identify that I probably need one of these two. And I tried this one first, right? And then I ended up finding out that I don't even need the count. I can just have the URL, API key equals, and then put my key. And this is all the code you need to show something on your screen. Async function, and then it runs the function once it runs, right? Because when it runs your JavaScript, it's going to go by line, and then it gets to the very bottom, and then it runs the function that you already declared, right? And this gets the URL. It has my API key already embedded into there, right? It sets. I do my response with my await fetch with the URL I created. I get the response. I parse through it in JSON, and I console.log. And then every time I refresh it, oh, that's embarrassing. All right, let's figure this out. What is going on here? Let's try it. And count equals 5. What is going on? Did my key expire? Excuse me. Okay. Come back up here. Await, response, data, console log. What is going on? If you guys see something that I don't, please say something. Let's close up. Oh, I was in the wrong message. My bad. I was looking at warnings, but I should be looking at the messages. It was working all along. Told you. Anyways, I refresh it. And what the heck? Oh, there we go. The await. And I get the count of 5. If I took it off, it should still give me what I'm looking for. But this time, it's going to give me today's date, May 10th, 2024. I opened it up. The only media type I had was video, which is a YouTube URL. Today, there was no image, unfortunately. So I didn't even bother looking for an update. But essentially, I pinged the API, and I got a response. Exactly what I wanted, but unfortunately, today was the wrong day for a picture. They only had videos. But yeah, it's that simple, right? The hardest part was trying to get the URL and working with the API, which honestly was the real test of this assignment. Cool. Where'd you guys get stuck at? Eric, Joseph?
Finding the URL
Yeah.
to use. So, yeah, just trying to figure out how to. I couldn't come across anything that showed like the format of API underscore key equal the key that I had, I got been able to do it. But I guess I failed the test there.
It's okay. But at least you have an idea now of what it looks like when you look at documentation. It's not always going to be a straight copy and paste, right? Like the dog API, the poke API, that was very straightforward. It told you exactly what you needed, copy and paste. But as the APIs get more complex and they start requiring authentication, API keys, different query parameters, the URL starts getting more complex, bigger, and there's different ways how it kind of it structures its URL, right? And there's no way of knowing unless you read the documentation to figure out how that specific API is working. And you're gonna figure this out once you guys start building your own APIs. You can create your own endpoints, right? You guys will dictate what your endpoints will be, what they are called, and what they lead to. So every API is different because they structure it different. For the most part, there's some similarities of how things are broken apart with the and sign, the equals, and whatnot. But this is kind of what for the most part how most of these APIs are, and you'll figure out there's going to be more complex APIs out there that's going to be significantly harder. As a matter of fact, let me show you, man. Spotify API. I can't stand this website. Just thinking about it. The Spotify API for developers. Oh, you see it's already purple. Anytime now. Getting started, requesting access token. Where's it at? They have different methods of doing it. Access token, token type, expiration dates. You can't even begin to understand what this is. URL encoded. It's such a pain, man. Different types of authorization, which one you're using. Here's the code flow of what it should look like. You have to request the authorization to access data. So you requested the client ID, URL, like redirect the URL, scopes. And then after that, you get login and authorization access. After that, they give you the request access and refresh token. Man, it is a maze. They get more complex, right? They're gonna request more information. It's gonna be more talking to the API. It's not just a single fetch and then you get everything you want. They get more difficult. So you guys need to acquire the skills to be able to read through this stuff and kind of understand what it's asking from you. Here's different code snippets for different ways of doing it. Yo, it is atrocious looking at this. I cannot stand this website. But it gets more complex. Here's a small JavaScript example, right? They require the client ID, the client secret. You have to build the URL. You have to add the headers. So the headers is what you're including in your URL with it. The type of authorization, the type of credentials. It's a pain. So they get more complex, guys. All right. But you guys need to acquire the skills of being able to read through the documentation and understand what they're saying. All right. And that's probably the hardest part. The code is the easy part, man. That's easy. The documentation is where it gets you. Okay.
Yeah, I always wonder why it's so cryptic. A lot of the APIs just like so cryptic and like they're like trying to make it hard to understand.
Yeah. And the only way to get good at it, man, is exposure. Look, like I had to Google 99% of everything involving the credentials and the accessing of this freaking API. I told you it took me a week just like on trying to figure out the API, a week. And whenever we got into like these single projects, like we had stand up in the mornings where we showed up, they took attendance, and then it was like 15, 20 minutes, and then they broke us off for the rest of the day. So from 9 a.m. and then we had stand down at 5. Like I was coding all day. And then after, dude, until like 2 a.m. for a week, trying to figure out the Spotify API. It gets hard, but that's the only way you learn. You guys struggle with the NASA API, right? You only had like 10 minutes on it. Imagine an API that took you a week to understand. That's insane. So, but it's okay. It's part of the journey. Welcome to this part of software engineering. All right, moving forward. Let's close this up. Close the NASA API. Goodbye, Pokemon. And yeah, so that concludes the API lesson 5. We're gonna go ahead and move over into CRUD applications for the last hour of today. We're not gonna get too far in there, but we're right on schedule, so no biggie. All right, CRUD applications. What is a CRUD app? A CRUD app is a specific type of application that consists of 4 basic operations: creating, reading, updating, and deleting, right? It's in the acronym, right? Being able to, your application being able to create something. For example, what one of the assignments that you guys are gonna do probably today, creating a to-do list, like creating a new item, a new list item, right? Creating something on your screen, like creating an image, something like creating on your application. If your application wants to create a to-do list, to create a subtask, tasks, subcategories, that's what it means by creating. Reading, being able to display the information. That's something you guys already learned yourself. So that's the easy part. Updating, being able to grab something and then change it. So if you had a task on your to-do list to do, but now it's complete, being able to update it to say that it's been completed. And then deleting, removing a task from your list, right? That is a type of CRUD application. These 4 operations map to the HTTP protocol method, the protocol the internet runs on, right? And these methods are as follows. You've already experienced one, which is the GET request, right? Putting a request to an API to get information back to you, right? Another one is a POST request, which is creating, right? A good example of that is whenever you guys go and make a new account on a website, for example, Spotify, you go and sign up and you fill out the your account information. You put in your username and password and whatnot. The application is going to take the information that you give it and it's going to put a POST request to the backend where it's going to take your information and it's going to create you an account, right? So creating using the POST request. Another way you can do POST requests are made is if you already have the account and you want to create a playlist, right? It takes your information, right? Ensure that it's your account, so it has to authenticate you, and then it creates a playlist for you, right? That's another method of a POST request. To create something in your application, you put in a POST request, right? A PUT request is to update, right? If I want to go and update the songs on my playlist, if I want to change the name of my playlist, whenever I go there, what's happening in the backend is the application puts in a PUT request to my backend to update my playlist. So I go in there and I decide, hey, I want to change my playlist name. So I press the edit button, I put in my new name, I put save. The application is going to take the new input. It's going to also take my credentials. It's going to verify and authenticate me, ensure that it is my account, and then it's going to go grab my account, look for the playlist I'm trying to update, add the new name to it, and then bring it back to my browser and display it for me. Right? Delete, same manner, right? I want to delete this song out of my playlist. It's going to take my credentials, authenticate me. It's going to grab the song I'm trying to delete, take it to the database, look for my information, look for my playlist, grab the song, delete it completely from the database, and then it's gonna bring it back. It's gonna bring back the updated playlist to me, which now no longer has that song, and now it displays it on my browser. Right? These are the 4 operations that you guys will be working with. Postman and APIs. An example of a read request or get request is what we have been doing up to this point. All right, we are reading information from the server, right? Essentially, right? Information they're getting back and they're giving it to us. We haven't gone to databases, but eventually you will have an API to your database where you can do more. Don't worry about that. It's outside the scope of Foundations of Program. But essentially, a small demo. If let's go to the Pokemon API to explain it. Let's say this was my I had an account with the Poke API and I had access to all their stuff. I have all these Pokemons on this playlist, whatever. And I want to delete a Pokemon from I want to delete. I did them. Then I will put in the post request. Right? When I send in a post request, I send in certain parameters. It typically takes headers. It would take something like which I don't have it here. It would take your token. It might take an email address. It'll also grab from the URL the Pokemon you're trying to remove, and then it will send it in the form of a post request. It'll grab it and delete it. It's hard to describe it here unless you saw it actually do it. Man, I wish I could show you. Maybe I can pull it up on Monday on my own personal projects and show you how it works. But essentially, it's the same manner that we did for everything else, where we put get and we grab the ditto. It's grabbing the endpoint of ditto, looking for it, and we bring in the information. That's the same manner that we do other stuff like update, post, and delete.
Are you in VS Code right now?
This is Postman, my man.
Oh, Postman.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right, thanks.
So we're gonna build the to-do list. This is a very simple way of explaining CRUD applications: create, reading, update, and delete. You won't really do any. You're not gonna do any get requests, no post requests or deleting or anything like that. I'm sorry, like yeah, updating or whatever, and all that crazy stuff. It's gonna be very simple. It's just create, read, update, and delete. Let's look at the assignment. So here is the to-do list. Let's check out the JavaScript. All right. So right now, the moment we log in, it gives us something on the console saying connected. It adds an event listener to the button called add to do, which is this. And then we're grabbing the unordered list. So we probably can't see it here. Jesus Christ, man. Here we go. We're grabbing the unordered list, right? It doesn't have any ID. They just grab the entire tag itself, and it's assigned to the variable called unordered list, right? And then this button has a method add to do, and within it, we're doing something to the list. We are query selecting the ID to do, which is the input, right? It is the search bar. We're grabbing the search bar and taking its values, And then we're gonna create a list element. So up to this point, we've used query selector to add event listeners to buttons, right? So we've kind of like manipulated the selectors, and we've also manipulated its input, right? So like the inner text or inner HTML, whatever you want to call it, that's all we've done up to this point. But now we're actually going to be able to create an element, right? This is going to take part. This is going to essentially cover the creating part of CRUD, right? We're going to create an element, right? Here you have an example of what it looks. Actually, oh no, that's the finished example. Oh my bad. You shouldn't have seen that. This is what yours look like. Absolutely nothing. So it's gonna be up to you guys. All right, go into.
I was gonna ask. I was like, why my file's empty?
Oh, I already gave you a hint. All right, if anything that helps you out. All right, I need you guys to create a to-do list. You should be able to add something into the search bar and then update a list element with a to-do item, right? That item should be able to update and it should be able to delete, right? The reading part is covered when you display it on your screen, right? Too easy. So technically, you only have to do 3 things, right? Create a to-do item, update it, and be able to delete it. Too easy? You guys just saw a small snippet that there's ways of creating elements using the create element tag method. There's also this, which I'll show you real quick. Don't look at nothing else. A pen child. Look that up. A pen child. If you guys remember a previous discussion with parent and children, right? I mentioned like, oh, this tag is a parent and it has a child, which is, you know, this H2 tag or whatever, or a paragraph tag, right? And they're nested. You're able to nest tags within each other. So if I wanted to create a header and then nest within it a paragraph, I could by using the append child. Cool. All right, there's other methods out there too. Try and figure it out. Too easy. We're going to. I'm gonna give you until 8:30, and at 8:30 we'll come back and walk through it, and then we'll call for Friday night. Too easy. Cool. Then let's do that. I'm break you guys off into individual breakout rooms by yourselves, and I'll bounce between them and help you guys out if you need to. Is that good? All right. Remember before the bot assignment, I was like, oh, well, this one doesn't really explain too much for you guys. It's kind of difficult. And then I was like, oh, my bad. Like, not this assignment. Yeah, this is the assignment I meant to say that to. I do apologize. Not much to go off the start. I'm actually going to add it to my notes for the incoming class. Add a slide explaining some more useful methods and how to use them. What lesson is this? Lesson 6, to-do list. Talk about add element or create element. We're going to code along. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and encode this for the sake of time and to not try to debug anything. I do have my example pulled up to the side, just so you guys are aware. Don't think I'm just like off the top of my head right now. I do owe you guys that transparency. But we're gonna go ahead and code along. I'll try to refrain from touching it too much. Use it as a reference. But that way we can kind of like talk through, you know, the thought process and how to go about this. Right. So You guys were giving a copy of the assignment and it's absolutely blank. All right. So that's unfortunate. So first thing first, if you guys remember, exclamation mark and tab, and we get ourselves our little boilerplate, but we don't have anything here linked yet. So we're gonna go ahead and use,
You share your screen, Roger.
oh, my bad.
Thanks.
Thank you. It's always you, Cody. Appreciate it for letting me know. MVP the class. Yeah, so the only thing I did, right? Exclamation mark tab, get our boilerplate going. And we want to link uh our JavaScript in here, right? So let's go ahead and add that in here. Script. And then it's gonna be I believe it's type. Yep. What is this? Text / JavaScript. And then we want to have the source, and it's going to be app.js. And just to ensure it's connected, go to our app.javascript, set console.log connected. Right.
So just out of curiosity, if you try to connect it with the source as if you just copy the path, as I was trying to do, is that not working? Was that not working for me because that was pulling something locally versus the
It
repo we cloned?
depends if you have Ubuntu. If you don't, it can get very complex when you try to do the exact path. It tends to not be exactly where it's at, or where you're located might not be the correct location to get you to where you want to go. But because it's in the same folder, you don't have to do anything crazy like that. You can just put app.js. If it was a subfolder, then you would put like the dot, right, to go in there, or like the dot / or stuff like that, right, to go back up a level. But you don't have to do that. It's the same directory, same level, nothing below or above. So don't try to get a direct path. Just we have the separation concerns, but it's all in the same folder for a reason, right? But very simple. Console.log connected to ensure it's working, and voila, it is. All right, so that means we can actually get to it. In our HTML, we're going to create an h1 header and give it to list. We're going to give it an input tag and button, and it's going to say add task, right? This input tag, we're going to give it a ID of to do, and then our button, we're going to give it an ID of add. All right, pretty straightforward. Now we have something on the screen that we can work with, right? So what's the first thing that we want to do? Right, if you guys remember from like the calculator, we want to be able to have a button that when you click it, it takes input from the search bar or the input tag. So we can do document.query selector, get the add button, .add event listener, click, and then upon clicking, we want to do what? Well, I know that whenever I type into this input tag and I press add task, I want to automatically add it to a list, right? So we're going to do a function called add to do task. And then down here, we're going to do function add to do task and open it up. Now, where is it going to go? Well, we can go ahead and open up an unordered list and have it empty. Right. I'm adding the list there for the sake of just knowing that I have somewhere that I want to put my task at. It's down here. I can't see it. if I want to make this a real application, I can make it nice and fancy, add a huge box, almost like a div. Inside there, I could put my unordered list and whatnot, but we're not doing that. I just know that right below my input tag and my button is where my list is gonna go. Plain and simple, right? Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to be able to grab the input from the input tag and do something with it. So we're gonna do let to do is equal to document dot query selector. We want to grab our our input, which is called to do, ID of to do, and I want to grab its value, right? And just to make sure it's working, and I do this just to so fact that I'm not making any mistakes, right? Add event listener. There's an issue here. Add to do task, add to do task. Let's put space here. No, I don't. Let to do equals document.query selector. Dot value console log. What is
Do
going
you have to
on?
add the hashtags? Are those ID names for the ad up top? Query selector.
I do. I'm sorry. Yeah, my bad. I
Okay.
messed that up. Thank you. It's still giving me an issue. Hashtag. I'm grabbing the button. ID. Add event listener. And it's giving me an issue. Why?
Did you ever finish getting your script tag set up? Looks like it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh wait,
I think you should
didn't
add
give.
defer in line
Here,
6. You can add
I think
defer there.
I think I
Or
got.
put it at the bottom.
I'm
15.
sorry. I'm losing you. One person
So
at a
it's
time, please.
null because you didn't give it any input. So input ID is to do. Usually we put equals blank quotes, but right now it's null. Right.
Where?
Your input, the to-do list right now. Is that right now you don't have any input ID equals to do. Usually we add like
Text.
yeah. And then
The input type equal to text.
I can put a placeholder. Is that what you're saying?
No, right there. So type something in there. So I think I think in line 6, the JavaScript you should put before type you should put defer or put the JavaScript at the bottom because you don't have the async there that you usually put there.
Oh, we can put async. There we go. Oh man, I can't stand this. Async. I guess if I didn't put it, I could just put it in the bottom of the body tag. Okay, good. Everything else should be fine then. So input tag to do text. Let me just add a placeholder because now I thought about it. New task. Okay. Cool. Clean room. All right. Man, these script tags. All right, so far it's working. Before you even got like 10, 20, 30 lines of code, it's good to just, check as you go. It's very easy to overlook stuff, as you guys just saw. And then once you're so far in, and when you make an issue, you have an issue, it's going to be a lot harder to try to debug it. But we have that. So now what? Who wants to give it a crack? What do you think is next?
So you want to add that value into your unordered list as a new list item.
Yeah. So we want to create a list item. And we just learned that there is a cool method of doing it. So we can do new task, let new task is equal to document dot create element. And then what kind of element do I want to create? Well, I have an unordered list. An unordered list takes list tags. We're gonna do li. Right? We're gonna do the li so we can create the element first. You cannot append the child without creating it. Right? I saw some of you guys doing that. You're like putting the pen and like it's not working. Well, because you never created it. Right? So we want to create the element first. And then once it's created, then we can append the child. And we're gonna go ahead and do that just so you guys can start seeing it, how it works. Well, where do we want to append it to? Well, I know that we have an unordered list. Let's go ahead and give an ID. Actually, it's only gonna be one. We don't need to give an ID. We can say unordered list is equal to document dot get query selector. We're gonna grab the unordered list. And then we can do unordered list dot append child. Let's give it a new task. The new task. Okay, so we see there it did add a list item. We see a bullet point, but there's nothing in that bullet point. Right? Why is it empty?
You added the list item, but you didn't give it any text.
Yeah, exactly. So we created the element, but it's an empty element, right? It doesn't. We didn't tell it, what this element is going to have. It's just an empty tag. So we want to do new task dot what was it? Dot inner text is equal to the value that we're getting from the input tag, which we assigned it to the variable to do on line 4. And now it's on there. Pretty cool. So we created an item and we're reading it on our screen. Well, how do we delete something? What's one way we could delete this? How should we delete this? What should we do? Any thoughts? Well, for the sake of time, I'm gonna go ahead. We have that, but wouldn't it be pretty cool if whenever we create a task, to the side of it, there's a button that we can choose that deletes it if we wanted to? Yeah. So let's do that. We're gonna do let delete button is equal to document dot create element. All right, we want to create a button. So we pass it the tag that we're trying to create. We're gonna create the button. And then I wonder if we can do it from here. Dot inner HTML, yeah, is equal to delete. But I think, oh no, we can't do it. Not from here. This has to go in its own line. Delete button dot inner HTML is equal to delete. And then we have that, but it's still not on here yet. So we need to add the delete button to our list item, right? So how do we do that? Well, we can, before we add the new task onto the list, let's add the button to that task, right? So we can do new task dot append child. and then we're gonna give it the button that we just created. Nice, right? So we created, we got the value from the input tag, saved it to the to do variable. We created a list element. We manipulated the list element so it has the input from the input tag. After that, before we added it to anything, we created the delete button. We manipulated the inner HTML to change what it says, and then we appended it to the new list item we created. And once they were all together, we added it into our unordered list. Cool.
Quick question.
What's up?
Why were you able to have the inner HTML equal to delete? Wouldn't that be inner text? Or because I was thinking with inner HTML, you'd have to put HTML there.
I think
But inner HTML worked.
Yeah, I mean, that'll work. Use whatever you want.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. I'll
Inner text, inner HTML. I'm not sure where the difference is, but they seem to do the same thing. Cool. When you got 10 minutes. So we got the button, but it doesn't do what I want it to freaking do. And I don't like when things don't listen to me. All right, so next we have to add an event listener to this button, right? So after we manipulate the text, we're gonna do delete button dot add event listener. We want to listen to the click. And where are we right now as we're doing this? Where are we in our code?
We're executing this function that we called, right?
Yeah,
so,
we're within a function, right? So, and now we want to add a function to this. So we have to define it. Well, we can just define it within here. So we can do open and close parentheses. And then we're gonna do a fat arrow, open and close curly brackets. Have you guys seen this before? Right? It's a different way of declaring the function. All right, it's called a fat arrow function. So because we're currently inside of a function, I don't want to exit out and have to create a new function. I can just do a fat arrow function and do it on the same line that we're declaring this event listener. Now, from here, whenever I click this button, I want to do what? I want to delete the list item that I am attached to. Well, how do we do that? Well, there's a method for grabbing its parent, right? And it's a little confusing. So we're going to declare list item. So let list item is equal to delete button dot parent node. So what is it saying? Well, this variable list item is going to hold whatever the parent of delete button is. Does that make sense? Parent node, right? I'm just trying to grab whatever is a parent of button. Well, who's the parent of the button? Who is going to be his parent? Well, we gave him over to the new to-do list we created down here, right? New task, received a child, and that child was the delete button. So therefore, that new task is his parent. Does that make sense? So when I do delete button dot parent node, this returns to me whoever is his parent, which in turn is going to be the new list item down here. So that's what gets assigned into list item. And then after that, we're going to call list item dot parent node dot remove child. What child do I want to remove? List item. I want to remove itself. I know it's a little confusing. It's calling upon itself to grab its parent so it can delete itself. Does that make sense? It's a little confusing. But if done correctly, this should, in turn, delete my list item. Okay, once again, I grab the parent of the delete button. which we know it's going to be the list item, right? So this it ends up being this, right? So then we call it right here. We grab its parent. Who's its parent? The unordered list, right? Because we assign the button to a list item who's assigned to the unordered list. Still with me? So we grab the list item, we grab its parent, which is the unordered list, and then we remove the child, which is itself. Childception. Cool? But does that make sense? I hope I'm not confusing you guys. Please, anyone, if you're confused, let me know.
I have a quick question. So why does it not matter that it's inside of that function? That new add event listener is inside of a function we call. Wouldn't that function just run and end?
Where?
So the delete button dot add event listener.
Yes.
It's inside of that function, the add to do list or add to do task, right?
Yes.
But then so once that function completes, doesn't that function not get called again until you click add task?
What line are you talking about?
I mean, look at line 8, or sorry, line 10, right? Delete button add event listener. Maybe I just don't understand the basics.
Yes, Cody. I create this task, right? I want to create this task called clean room.
Yeah.
So I press this button. The moment I press this button, it creates a button and it assigns it an event listener with a function. It's done. It's the same reason why after I press this button and it runs through the same function, my delete button doesn't just disappear. Does that make sense? Right? Because
Okay.
with that same logic, then my delete button should disappear too, right?
Right.
Does that make sense? I know what
Well,
you're trying to say. Oh,
yeah.
it's a function declared within a function. Well, so within this function, I'm creating a button. So with that logic, my button shouldn't appear as well. That's that's kind of where
Yeah.
I'm trying to get at. It still exists. The function is still assigned to that button when it was created, right? The code isn't no longer here, right? It exists within this function, but it was still created and assigned to it. Cool?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, okay, yeah, that does make sense. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. I don't want to do the update because the update can get confusing. I'm gonna have to go back and I can do it. All right. So how do I do this? I create my task, but how do I update this if I want to change it? Well, there's different ways. There's a specific way called text content, but it can get a little confusing because of a specific reason. If we do new task dot text content, I believe it's what's it called? I gotta look it up. Oh my bad. Okay. If we do new task, we can change these attributes, right? We can change attributes of pretty much any tag. So we're gonna grab the list item. We're gonna do set attribute. And one of the attributes that we want to change is whether it's editable, or not, right? And that command is called content editable. And we're gonna set it to true. But when we do that, it edits it, but because the delete button is its child, it also affects the delete button. There's a way around this, but I would have to refactor some code, which I do not want to do right now. Because we don't have time. There's like 2 minutes left. But we will continue this on Monday. Continue to work on this over the weekend if you guys have any time. Try to do what I just did, but on your own.
I'm pretty sure, I don't know if you guys were able to keep along or not. We all code differently. But do review this recording and, try to recreate this and finish it by creating the update method. Okay? But besides that, I hope this wasn't too much. I know that was pretty fast. I tried doing this as slow as possible, but there's only so much time I have for 30 minutes. And I want to make sure that you guys enjoy your weekend. But besides that, thank you guys for showing up. I look forward to seeing you guys on Monday. Y'all have a good rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
No
you.
problem.